Welcome everybody for the Leaders in Housing Counseling call, the call before the Labor Day weekend. We're having an excellent turnout. Thank you for all your end of summer warriors who are still at your desks doing all your good work. We're going to dive in pretty quickly because we have a crowded agenda, lots of guests, lots of budding issues to work through, and I think we want to cover as much ground as we can. So we're going to do updates on a number of things that have been brewing over the last few weeks in summer. We're going to get a special report on the client management system studies that Housing Action Illinois has done. We have David Young to talk about their study and what they're going to do with it. It's very, very helpful stuff. And we sent out earlier the link to it, and we'll send it back again after the call, but definitely a useful tool for all of us. We're going to talk briefly about progress on what will replace HAMP. Ellie Pepper is going to join us again. She's becoming a regular, and about testing the MBA proposal and what the next phase is going to be. We're going to spend a good chunk of the call on a new online homebuyer education program. I think many of you know Sylvia Alvarez and Phil Tagliarini. They're going to join us from Tampa in the face of a hurricane. They're still on track and going to be joining us on the call. And then we'll do a quick, at the very end, just talk about NHRC. Though I have to say, we're getting lots of renewals coming in. We're getting some new memberships, and we really, really appreciate that vote of confidence and engagement that so many of you are doing. Okay, so let's dive in. So very quickly, the survey on the impact of funding cuts. Matthew kind of gave highlights at the last call. We are moving forward. We've got, actually I don't know how many we've got down in the pipeline, but quite a good response. I think it's like 170 plus. We'd love to get more though, and I think we're very interested in getting your agency, if you haven't reported in, very interested in having big agencies and small. We'll really want some geographic diversity. This is going to get looked at by policymakers, by HUD. We're going to get some good mileage out of this, so as comprehensive as we can make it is really, really helpful. So we've sent the link out, we'll send it out again and keep going. Federal, and that cues directly into federal funding. So Matthew, what's the latest?
So not much by way of an update. I think, as folks know, Congress has been on their summer break for the last month and a half, or maybe even a little more than that. So there hasn't been any movement, but they will be coming back from the break next week. So we may start to see some movement. I mean, I think we mentioned, recently there's relatively few legislative days between when they get back and when they would need to pass a budget. So it does seem very likely that there'll be at least a short-term continuing resolution that would keep all the federal programs level funded, probably at least through the election. So we're still probably a little ways off from a budget bill happening, but we'll keep you posted as we go forward on the CR, and keep bringing updates now that there'll be some movement.
Okay, and so no changes in the numbers. We're at 47 million in the Senate and 55 million in the House. Obviously, major push to try to get 55 million to be the agreed upon amount. eHome has reached out and done the eHome network has done a letter which we've decided to sign and circulate. So I put that out yesterday afternoon. Certainly, if this is a natural for all of us, if you feel like weighing in. The deadline's tomorrow, so it's a scramble to get it all done, but be worth getting groups in, and the idea would be that the letter will be distributed on Tuesday when Congress comes back from their visits, and it advocates for a straight $55 million as the final funding level. We'll keep this fight going all through the fall and whatever the CR decision is. We're very clear, as Matthew said, that nothing will happen until after the election, and there may be some time after that before they actually decide on a budget. More to come later on that. So there is a bill pending in the House about the settlements, which have been very valuable to our work and have provided substantial funding for housing counseling, as well as some for legal services, CDFIs, and other programs like that. Matthew, what's it all about?
Yeah, so this goes back. I mean, it's been going on for at least a year and a half, maybe even more than that. That in various ways, House Republicans, and there's a couple in particular, Chairman Goodlate and Chairman Hensarling, have really been attacking money that was included in the settlements. In particular, there was two that required funding for HUD-approved housing counseling agencies. So they've really aggressively gone after the Justice Department for including those provisions. They frame it as, you know, a handout by the Obama administration to their political allies. It's been pretty ridiculous and pretty disingenuous, but they've really been quite tenacious about sticking with it. So there's been a number of hearings in different committees, and somewhat more recently they've started introducing legislation, sometimes as riders to appropriations bills. There is a proposed amendment to an approps bill in the Senate. There's now a standalone bill, which there actually has been a standalone bill, but this is a specific bill that just addresses, that would prohibit the Justice Department from including funding for essentially any third party in any settlements that they reach. And as Bruce said, so that it would affect obviously housing counseling agencies, CDFIs, legal services, and really would be incredibly broad. I mean, a lot of times in settlements, for example, in a consumer products case, there might be funding that goes to, the PERGs or something like that. So the implications would be really broad. We do expect, though, that the bill will pass in the House, but there isn't at the moment there isn't a Senate counterpart. So I don't think there's not immediate danger that this bill is going to have the intended purpose of cutting off funding in future settlements. But we do think it's important to push back. So we have a sign-on letter that we're going to circulate. Unfortunately, it's a very quick turnaround. The legislation is expected to come up either Wednesday or Thursday on the House floor. So we're going to get the letter in on Tuesday. And this is all through Americans for Financial Reform. I don't believe we actually circulated it to the listserv, so I'll do that after the call. And if folks can turn it around quickly, we certainly would appreciate having everyone signed on. And we're also doing some work. Empire Justice and some others are working on trying to get an op-ed placed. So there's other ways that we're pushing back, but we do think it's important, to kind of push back on the narrative that the House Republicans have been pushing. I think that's it. Bruce, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a broad coalition of groups working on it. We're obviously deeply concerned, but we're not the only ones, and I think getting something in we don't have to have everybody sign on this. I think it's a marker. There'll be a bigger fight. A couple of big issues. One is that we don't want to lose any Democratic votes on this, and we definitely want to bolster the Senate. I mean, here's the bad news: is that it's already had a chilling effect. The most recent settlements have not had third-party funding pieces in it, and obviously with NFMC going away, this was an important issue to us, and we'll need to, I mean, I think there's two problems, one of which is the Senate, and we hope to stymie it in the Senate, and then hope that the climate in the Senate in the next, after the elections will be more favorable. The other issue is that in the House, if it's likely to still be Republican, and Goodlatte is in place, or some of the people who think the way he does, that this may continue to come up, and we need to think of sort of a more long-term strategy to try to limit the damage here. So this is one step in a long process we'll be concerned about. Okay, though actually, interesting enough, I think we have some support from Republicans, and we need to figure out how to leverage that more effectively in this particular situation. And that's an area we need to think about. Good, well, let's keep moving. Piece of good news, we've expanded the NHRC board and added Njamila Davis. Many of you know her from the National Urban League, national figure, but also she's very helpful in the recent conversations about reporting systems and HUD intermediary issues and streamlining the reporting systems and accountability. I mean, she's been, you know, a good vocal and thoughtful contributor to many of the conversations we have. And Ellie Pepper from Empire Justice Center is also joining the board, and many of you got to know her quite well now because of the good work she's been doing on what will replace HAMP, though Ellie is doing lots of work on many issues and is also involved with the work that we do with AFR, so it's very helpful to have an experienced counselor voice in some of these conversations with our national coalition partnerships. So welcome, Andrea. Welcome, Ellie. All glad to have you. One other quick note is that I'm going to be in Michigan for the Home Free USA conference. And I should just say they've made an offer that NHRC members can get free registration. First 10 get to have free registration. I think there's still some seats available in that. And it's a 3-day conference. I'm also, when I travel, I try to do a meeting with local housing counselors. We had a very good one in Orlando a couple months ago. So in Detroit, if you're in the Michigan area, please feel to join us. You don't have to be just from Detroit, though we want everybody from Detroit to come. But we're going to sit down, and I'll be very interested in hearing what your experiences are in terms of the marketplace, available access to credit, what are the opportunities, what do you think we need to be thinking about, how well are the programs working that especially Fannie and Freddie have been doing. I mean, there's lots of deep conversation, very interested in understanding. So please join us for that if you're in the area. And that'll be on the 20th in the afternoon, 3 to 5. If you didn't get an email from me and you're in Michigan, please shoot me an email now, and I can send you the details. Okay, with that note, let's move on. So in the course of our work, there have been many discussions about the shortcomings of client management systems and the need to improve them. And many of you have written me at different times asking for advice and what do we know about this system or that system. And Housing Action Illinois has really stepped forward to do a more comprehensive comparison between CMS systems and done a deep dive to figure out which ones are compatible with HUD systems, which means that a few names that I'm not even familiar with surfaced in this. So it's very helpful. David Young, whose project it was, is joining us on the call today. David, are you there?
I am. Good afternoon.
Excellent. So tell us about the study and what should people understand about it?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about it. And I am David Young with Housing Action Illinois. We're based in Chicago. And just as a little bit of background, how Housing Action Illinois came to evaluating client management systems is we thought that we might have an opportunity to build a better mousetrap, so to speak. We had been working with a local foundation on creating a client management system along with Neighborhood Housing Services of Chicago. And when our state had money available through the National Foreclosure Settlement, we got a grant in order to build out that client management system. What we realized after getting started was that it was going to take far more financial resources than we had available in order to create the type of client management system that we felt that our affiliates needed. And so we wanted to look at was there something else that we could do with these resources that could be helpful to housing counseling organizations. And that's when we happened upon the idea of looking at all of the existing client management systems and doing an evaluation so that organizations would have a tool that they could use if they were deciding to switch to a new client management system, purchase a new client management system, that at least they'd have some more information that they could use in order to make a decision. And so we started this process by consulting with HUD and looking at HUD's list of approved client management systems. And between systems that are publicly available and systems that are proprietary, that either were developed by an intermediary and only available for their clients, or developed by a specific organization and only available for their partners or members, there were nearly 50 different systems that we could look at. What we decided to do was to concentrate on the systems that were publicly available, so that any housing counseling organization that were interested in switching would have the ability to switch to that system. And so that more than halved the number of client management systems that we would be looking at. We then further refined by making sure that the client management systems that we were evaluating met HUD's latest ARM5 requirements for the housing counseling system interface. And so that got us to a total of 17 client management systems. And so what we then did is reached out to all of those developers or owners of those client management systems. We sought out information about all of those systems. We had a survey for each of those owners and developers to fill out, and then we also scheduled product demonstrations and interviews with each one of the organizations. And we made sure that as far as those interviews were concerned, that we asked the same questions across the board of all of the client management system owners or developers so that the information would be consistent. So once we got all of that information, then we were able to compile the document and release it. Just tell you a little bit about how this was set up. As I said, we wanted to look at client management systems that were publicly available and that also met the ARM5 HCS requirements. It could be systems that either were free or systems that an organization would have to pay for. We wanted to make sure that we could explain as a part of this document exactly what the name of the system, who developed the system, how the system came about, because in many cases it's very interesting why an organization or why a company decided to develop a system. And we look to highlight each one of the products to do, and we also included charts to explain, for example, did the CMS have the ability to do custom reports, custom fields? Could you export information, and how could you export that information? In what data format could you export data? How was data stored for the system? Is it stored on a computer or is it stored in the cloud? How does the interface look? What is the compatibility with a browser? For example, If you does it work well with Firefox as well as with Chrome, or does it only work with Chrome? Are there any special features, and what kind of organization might this be best suited for? And what we really wanted to do with this document is not say, here are the top 3 or here are the top 5 client management systems, but we really wanted to give as much information about all the different systems as possible and give an idea on what type of, if you were this type of organization, this system might work well for you. We wanted to make sure that organizations that were looking at a new client management system had as much information as possible so that they could make that decision. And so by using this document, it doesn't necessarily say, okay, now that I've read this document and I've reviewed these 17 client management systems, I know exactly which one to buy. But in reality, that once you've read this document and you've reviewed these systems, you can narrow down which ones you are more interested in talking to the CMS owner or developer about and being able to get more information regarding your specific needs. I've used this analogy a couple of times before, that we really look at this evaluation much like a consumer buying an automobile, and that it's your job as the consumer to make sure that you have as much information as possible in order to make that informed decision. It's not the job of the salesperson to make sure that you have the most information. It's the job of the car salesman to make sure that he or she can sell you a car. And that is the same for any person that's looking to sell a client management system. Their job is to get you to buy that system. So we wanted to make sure that we could provide as much information as possible to organizations so that they could make an informed decision. And as we all know, with housing counseling organizations, especially if we're looking to switch to a system that has a cost, if it has a subscription, if it's going to require a significant investment, that is going to be a huge lift for a housing counseling organization, and we want to make sure that any resources that they're going to invest are going to be well utilized for not just the short term, but also the long term, because it can be such a big investment. So that's how this document came about. I hope that everybody's had an opportunity to take a look at it and found it helpful. We've had a chance to talk to a number of different organizations about this, and one of the things that we are going to do in a future update is we are going to do a side-by-side comparison chart. That was a suggestion that someone made to us, that if you could see all of the information side by side, that would be helpful. So we are going to do that, and we're going to put it up on our website, which is housingactionil.org. Again, that's housingactionil.org. And then we're also interested in your feedback about what additional information you'd like to see for when we do a second edition of this document. So I hope that was a brief explanation, and I am available to answer questions if there are any.
So we had one person who just wanted to thank you and said it was a great breakdown. So people certainly appreciate the work that you've done on it. Someone else said that the side-by-side comparison would be great, and also said thank you. And the one other kind of question or suggestion someone had, did you talk about the upkeep of the system over the years? And if not, I think that's something that they think would be helpful in the future.
Sure. We can look at that. Again, we did ask the developers about that. Specifically, we wanted to know when updates are done and how often those updates are done. But we can also ask some additional information about upkeep for a future edition. And I just want to take a moment to thank the Attorney General of the state of Illinois, Lisa Madigan, who provided the funding through the National Foreclosure Settlement that allowed us to develop this document.
Excellent. Thanks so much, David. Very useful, and I think one of the things it does is it heightens sort of what the needs are of local counseling agencies relative to this. And there are some robust conversations going on about what the next generation of CMS will look like, and I think this contributes a lot to that. So great work all around, and definitely appreciate that it's an online resource that I think makes it much easier for everybody to access.
Certainly. Thank
Nice
you.
work. Good. Well, let's stay in touch about it and let us know when you've got updates.
Absolutely.
So Ellie, let's invite you in for a quick one. We've done a deep dive with FHFA and Fannie and Freddie on HAMP, and I know there's some thinking about the how to test the MBA proposal. What's the latest, Ellie?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Beautifully.
Okay. So the latest is we met with FHFA and asked them to give us a little bit deeper dive on their data to test for income and geographic differences. But we also we would like to do our own data dive. And so we are working to expand the number of test cases that we have. Many of you provided me with some spreadsheets that had some very specific information about a HAMP modification, a HAMP Tier 1, and then how that same person would fare if they were put through the current Mortgage Bankers Association proposed modification. So we're trying to come up with a way to make it a little easier for folks to put their information into a database, and then we really hope to get it, at the very least, to get 100, but we're really hopeful that we'll get maybe 500 to 1,000 examples. That's our big goal, so that we can really do a real deeper data dive on how does the MBA proposal affect people with lower income, how would it affect people if they're currently using 40% housing to income or front-end debt. We're wondering how would it affect people if we knocked it down to 31%. They are allowing for as low as 80% LTV in some cases, loan to value, and we're wondering, but they'll only allow for 30% of the unpaid principal balance to be forgiven or forbeared in order to get to either 100% or 80% loan to value. We're wondering what would be the difference if it was maybe 35 or 40% instead. We're also wondering what effect the 40-year extension has on people who have significant equity in their homes. So these are the kind of things that if we had a larger sample, I mean, we had a very small sample. It was 23 homeowners that we were able to ultimately use in our sample, and it's not really a significant enough number to make any conclusions, but it did seem to indicate that lower income people are more negatively affected. So we just want to test it and really see with a larger number of people if that seems to hold true, and if it doesn't, then what we're recommend from there.
And so I know we've been in conversations with NCLR about potentially creating some kind of a portal to make it easier to enter data. And there's also the idea that for groups that have the ability to access, like through CounselorMax, their client pool, could they pull up a number of cases? We are not interested in the personally identifiable information. We don't care about their name. We don't care about their address. We care about the specifics of their modification and the specifics of where they started from. And so there's an opportunity there. We're trying to work out the technicalities on this, but at this point, I guess we're saying let's not do any more of the spreadsheets. Let's see if we can get this up and running, and we'll know probably next week. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And so if you are interested in we're very interested in getting individual cases from people, but we're also interested in figuring out if you have the capacity to do an upload of some of the data fields from your modifications, that will be a way. I mean, it's tough to get to numbers like 500. I was very impressed that you came up with 500, 1,000. But the only way is that if there's upload. But please let us know if you're interested in doing that. The Empire Justice Techno people, the royalty of the Excel spreadsheet, and more have been working closely with Ellie and Lot Diaz from NCLR, and Daniel have been involved in this project as well. Please let us know if you're interested, and we will. We're trying to figure it out with NCLR, but glad to do it with others as well. This is very valuable. It's all happening now. It's real time. These decisions will probably get made this month, and we're trying to shape what Fannie and Freddie are going to do, because we think they're the industry leaders. Can't do that without having much better data, and data that reflects the people we work with.
Yeah, and I think the goal with NCLR is that Lot Diaz and Daniel Guzman are working on a web portal that could be opened up to anybody to sign in and then enter their information about their homeowner or homeowners through this web portal. And it would be a much simpler process than what we initially had come up with.
So for anybody that's interested, everything we're going to do, we'll have some time right after Labor Day. We'll certainly post it on the leaders list. Very, very valuable stuff. So as always, thank you, Ellie, and let us know if you are interested in the bulk upload opportunity, and know that we will not be interested in personally identifiable information. It really will be the data that around the mods themselves. Great. Okay. Thank you so much. So let's shift gears to an interesting development on in the homebuyer online education world. So many of you know Sylvia Alvarez and Phil Tagliarini from Housing Education and Alliance in Tampa, which, as you may know from the news, is about to get hit by a hurricane. But they're still warriors here and are joining us for this. This is going to be a techno experience for us. We're going to try our first video. Sylvia and Phil, are you there?
Yes, we are, and you're right. We're getting ready to get a visit from Hermine, or Hermine, whatever her name is. I told you earlier, Bruce, and I lied, that we were only going to get rain. Well, since we started the call, some patio cushions have actually fallen into our yard, so I'm not sure how bad this is going to get. So.
Well, good luck. We'll be all thinking about you.
Okay.
I'm going to have to go polish the canoe in a few minutes.
You know, it doesn't need to be polished, but let's get back to work here. Come on.
Okay. All right, so are you going to show the first video?
Okay, great. So we're going to start. Do you want any opening remarks you want to make first on Home Track?
Well, actually, just I'd like to sort of mirror the words that were said by the gentleman who spoke first on the development of his project. And just like him, we had no idea how long this was going to take, how much work was going to be involved, and the resources that we needed to bring to the table to get it done. So we're really proud of what we've been able to do. So with that, you can let her roll.
Are you thinking of buying a home? Research has proven that 35% of the families who lost their homes during the financial crisis.
So there's been quite a challenge with the video, doing videos, but I think it's going to be fine. You just may need to bear with us for just a minute, please.
Are you thinking of buying a home? Research has proven that 35% of the families who lost their homes during the financial crisis could have avoided this terrible tragedy. One simple.
We had this working just before the show, so let's just give it another couple cracks here.
Are you thinking of buying a home? Research is.
Nice graphics, though. Well, while we're clicking through,
Well, we can talk about it a little bit if you like while we're waiting for it
Welcome
to launch.
to HomeTrack Online.
yes.
Hi, I'm Sylvia
And
Alvarez,
let's let
Executive
Matthew work
Director of a
behind the
HUD
scenes. So
certified
why don't you
housing
talk,
counseling
and then,
agency.
We'll figure out what's going on.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Bruce, and also thank you, Matthew. This is Philip speaking.
Are you thinking of buying a home?
HomeTrack is
Research has
a
proven
two-year
that
project
35% of
developed
the
as
families
a
who lost
tool
their
to help
homes during
housing
the financial
counselors
crisis could have
deliver
avoided
quality
this terrible
online
tragedy.
homebuyer education
One simple thing could have saved
24/7.
them. Do you know
to
what that
clients
is?
in the comfort of their own homes. It was developed by housing counselors for housing counselors. We could see that families were showing up to these classes, driving from 2 hours away, needing to arrange child care or take time off from work.
Yeah, and I will say that HomeTrack is not
Welcome
the type
to
of
HomeTrack
online
Online.
education that
Hi,
we've been
I'm Sylvia
accustomed to.
Alvarez,
It
Executive
was
Director
developed
of a
with
HUD certified housing
edutainment.
counseling.
And that word was actually given to me by one of our competitors who was actually a friend. And what we do is we're using games, we use cartoons, funny videos, and a lot of interaction with the student. The student is actually taking the class with 4
Are you
other
thinking of buying a home?
virtual students
Research has proven that
who would
35%
typically
of the
ask
families who
the
lost
same
their
questions
homes
that
during the financial crisis could
that
have
the
avoided
student
this
would
terrible
be to catch a predator that's been seen on TV where there's a sting operation and they come in and they catch, you know, people who are trying to do illegal things. And that one has probably been one of the favorites. The best one is Sherlock Holmes, who does the home inspection and goes through quite an extensive process in explaining all the things that people should look out for when they're looking at a home before they even call a home inspector. So, and there's just lots of very interactive things that we've added throughout the couple years of development of this project. So, you know, that being said, Matthew, if you're ready, you can start the demo. University, several other universities, as well as the U.S. Department of Education, all agree that when you've got some technical data that you're trying to teach, it's much better if you can pepper it with humor because the retention level goes way up. And this is not to say that there are not some other great online homebuyer education programs, but unless there is a component that requires at least one session with a housing counselor, we are not doing the client a service. When a client prints his own certificate, they're at the end of the course, who's monitoring that class participation and how much they really know? So our 5 modules, they have quizzes at the end of each quiz. I'm sorry, they've got quizzes at the end of each module, and then we have a final quiz as well. And the student must pass the final quiz, and then they've got to have a one-on-one session with their housing counselor. And this is the counselor's opportunity to ask questions and ensure that the student understood the material and may possibly set up additional counseling sessions if needed.
I also like to add that we've caught several cheaters, so to speak. We can tell when someone has spent 5 minutes on a module or an hour, and we gently ask them to go back to the unit and retake it because, you know, we can see that that they didn't spend sufficient time on the module and they're missing out on some good information. At first, they're surprised, but they do go back and retake the modules and are prepared for the final counseling session. Retention is very high with HomeTrack. The passing score is 75%, but our average student score is 91.8%.
And HomeTrack is accepted by most state housing agencies or other programs that accept online homebuyer education from a HUD-approved counseling agency. Recently approved by Bank of America, Freddie Mac accepts it, several banks, Wells Fargo sends clients, and many, many more. And the beauty of this is that when we started to develop this, it was done as a tool for housing counselors so they can participate in the fees and generate some income, which we all so badly need. And partner agencies can share in the fees 50-50. The fee for taking HomeTrack is $100 per single person or married couple. Partner agencies have a choice between 2 different landing pages, and they will also have full access and full and complete access to their HomeTrack branch so they can monitor their clients and see who is completing the course and who needs to be contacted. So it's available in English right now, but we're talking to 2 different organizations that are very interested in funding this for us in Spanish. And I want to right now give a shout out to Milt Sharp over at eHome for circulating that letter. We need to all be signing it because this is important. We're losing funding and we need to get as much funding as we can. So HomeTrack is just another alternative, a fun way to give your clients an opportunity to get the education they really need and to really get it because we monitor them. So that being said, I don't know if Philip, you need to add anything to that?
Well, I think it's important to note that, you know, any student that takes the class, it's actually the local housing counselor who referred them to that class and maybe their own site that's going to be issuing a certificate to the student. So they get to ensure themselves that they've provided that educational level to that student before they give a final certificate.
And we want to make sure that everyone gets educated before they buy a home because, quite frankly, we never want to see another housing crisis like we're just coming out of. And the best insurance against that is being educated. Home buying, I have my real estate license and I've had it for years, but I would never even write my own contract. Buying a home is complicated and it can be a nightmare if you're not taking the right steps. And that's the main reason that Philip and I started to develop HomeTrack.
Can you say more about how the co-branding works and in the name of the agency as well as HomeTrack and those sorts of things?
The agency's name is actually primarily on the certificate, and then there is a HomeTrack. I'm sorry?
On the site, the shared site that they're going to be using.
As well as the certificate, so their name appears on the site. Their logo appears on the site, but we're just developing a second option. One is a little bit more plain. The other one has a lot more bells and whistles that we should be having that new landing page completed within the next week. So actually it costs $250 to get your own landing page, and the upscale version will be $500. The agencies can either pay the fee or send us 5 clients directly, or for the basic landing page, or send us 10 clients for the more upscale landing page. And then, like I said, they will have access to all of their clients behind the scenes. They will know, just like we do our clients, what exactly has been going on. They'll know how to follow up. They'll know, they can see if the client had any issues with a particular module and maybe spend a little bit more time with them on that. So we're good to go, and we're looking for more partner agencies. If anyone who's interested in learning more about HomeTrack, please send an email to info@hometrackonline.org, and one of us will get back with you.
So do we have questions coming in, Matthew?
We do. First, there's a number of people who just wrote in to say that they really loved it after the videos. How long would the education component take for someone typically if they're not cutting corners?
If they're not cutting corners, it's going to take them between 7 to 8 hours, or let's say 6 to 8. But then, of course, they've got that at least 1 hour session with a housing counselor at the end. And but I will tell you, the comments that we've gotten back from the people who've taken it have been like 98% positive. Everyone has loved it. And the comments that have come back is, you know, you made a long course so much more enjoyable. And we're really proud of it. It's been a lot more work than we ever dreamed. And I know, if you recall, Bruce, when you saw it first in Orlando, everyone was just so excited about it, and because it's different. It's just different from what we've been used to out there. And and there are some good programs. I'm not going to say that there aren't. We just believe that unless you've got that one-on-one session, we're really not doing justice to our clients.
All right. Could you repeat that email address, and I'll just send it out in the...
info@hometrackonline.org.
All right. And could you go back over the costs, please?
Sure. It's $250 for the basic landing page, or they could send 5 clients directly, and then after that we'll create their own landing page for them.
Is that an annual fee, or is that a one-time fee?
No, it's a one-time fee. And we also, if they want the more upscale landing page, which has really got a lot of bells and whistles on it, then that one is $500, or they have to send us 10 clients. And that, again, is just a one-time fee. And then after that, they will take part in any of the fees that are generated from the clients that they send over to HomeTrack. And in fact, you know, the only identity that they're going to see is that this agency is a HomeTrack partner.
And then the cost to the consumer and how that is shared?
Okay, the cost to the consumer is $100 for a single person or married couple. And, you know, some people have said, well, you know, we do from time to time on a minimal case basis, we'll let some people take this on a scholarship basis, but it is our complete belief that if someone cannot afford $100 to get the most valuable information in this whole buying process, then maybe they're not ready to buy a home. Because once you buy a home, you understand that your budgeting needs to change. You've got to start putting away money for you know, emergencies that are going to come up. It's just a matter of when. So we're really proud of HomeTrack. And in addition to that, whatever fees are generated by one of our partner branches is split 50-50 with them.
So when will you be doing marketing to the general public to come, and would this be a lead generator for counseling agencies as well, sir?
We have done some for our own agency, and that's Housing and Education Alliance, and everyone can do their own, which in turn can get pointed to their agencies. I'm going to tell you what we have found that has been successful, and that is click-to-pay marketing that has, you know, really generated some interest for us, for sure.
There's a few people have asked if there's like a demo site, or if there's you know, some way that they can kind of preview it.
Sure. Well, actually, there's 2 things that they can do. They can go to Housing and Education Alliance's page and click on the HomeTrack tab, and the same videos that you showed today, Bruce, are there, as well as some information. But if they would like, if they're really interested and they would like a free code to go in and take the course themselves, just let us know at info@hometrackonline.org. We'll get them a free code. Everyone who's taken it has loved it, you know, the proof is in the pudding. Come and take the course, and you'll be happy home tracking.
All right. Someone asked how you go about monitoring the clients when it's a couple.
Well, the interesting part is if anybody's recently been to college, there's lots of e-learning going on, and you have to have a platform for that. So the organization we chose gives us the ability to have lots of tracking information and data available. They do an intake sheet, which provides the housing counseling agency with what they will need for their client management system. But in addition to that, there's a lot of data on the user and the time that they spend on each unit. So that's a great way to monitor as to how much they took. But it's a great thing at the end to get that one-on-one reaction with a client, just to assure the housing counselor that they retain the information before they issue the certificate. And even those who've cheated and tried to slide by the system, which you know in everything, there's somebody who's going to try and find a better way, they all agree that they're glad that they went back and completed it properly, because you know they thought they could just kind of slick through to the tests and get it done.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I think we're at the end of our time here. So we'll make sure to also in the summary on the call we'll distribute the info email link again. But very helpful, and good luck with the project, and let us know how it grows.
Well, again, we both like to thank Bruce and Matthew for putting this together for us, and thank you to all you listeners. We know how hard you work, just like we do.
And we're off now to go get some sandbags. So stay tuned.
Good luck with the storm. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Thank you, everybody. So very quickly, just a quick reminder that it's actually been a very good summer for memberships, and appreciate all the commitment that organizations are showing. There are some benefits. You get access to the foundation guide for free. We have a directors and officers insurance policy, which my understanding is can save people considerable money for their agency. It's through the National Committee on Responsive Philanthropy. It's a project they have done to reduce costs for nonprofits, and we're a member. And we'll continue doing things like that. But the real thing is that you're really supporting the work of advocating for housing counseling and trying to get housing counseling to voice in many of the housing conversations. We're doing a lot of work to try to position housing counseling for the next administration, and also in what will we think be the big issues around home ownership coming up. There'll be more on that later in the fall, and but we will continue to work the good work that supports the work that you do. So please think seriously about joining NHRC. We are deeply appreciative of the groups that have already done so, and we'll continue working to do the work to help everybody out. So on that note, we'll be back September 15th in 2 weeks, and be interested if you've got some thoughts about what you'd like to have as topics. We'll definitely be talking a good deal about what the federal funding situation is like and what we expect will happen in the fall, and we probably will know somewhat more about what the loss mitigation programs will look like, and certainly the early results from our surveys. So good. Keep up that good work. We really appreciate it a lot, and we'll continue talking with you. Bye.